Hello everyone, welcome back to Baji Rao IAS Academy. We have been discussing previous year's questions, which are being asked by UPSC and other state public service commissions. So, today we have one important question. So, this question is with respect to Indo Pacific. So, we all know how important Indo Pacific actually is. Okay, so repeatedly UPSC has been asking about Indo Pacific because now the centrality of the Indo-Pacific has been gaining prominence over a period of time. Now, majority of the global superpowers and middle powers have concentrated their resources. They concentrated their militaries in the Indo-Pacific region. Okay, so therefore it could be one of the potential regions. Okay, this is one of the potential areas in the future. Now, in this context, the question here is that Asia must not become an arena for great power contest. Okay, so it should not become an arena for great power contest. So this statement is actually given by Chinese President Xi Jinping while he was attending Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit. Okay, so Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit is actually a summit between all the countries which are part of Asia Pacific. Okay, so in fact, India is also part of Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit. Now, in this specific summit, Chinese President Xi Jinping has given this statement. So, what does this statement mean? So, this statement exactly mean that now majority of the countries, now because of Chinese aggression and assertiveness in the region, okay, so in this region, the Indo-Pacific region, now US has joined with other like-minded countries. So they have formed groupings like Quad, AUKUS. Okay, so they have formed different groups, in order to contain China. So therefore, what China has been suggesting is that Asia must not become an arena for great power contest. So elucidate the statement in the context of superpower rivalry in Indo-Pacific. Okay, so there's a superpower rivalry, the rivalry between the rivalry between China and US. Okay, so even the rivalry between Russia and US, it has come to the Indo-Pacific as well. Now, in this context, first we need to understand what exactly Indo-Pacific. So, what is Indo-Pacific? Now, Indo-Pacific consists of an area which comes, the Western Pacific, and the entire Indian Ocean right up to the eastern margins of African continent. So, this entire area. So here you can see this entire area is known as the Indo-Pacific region. Now we need to understand the importance and the relevance of the Indo-Pacific region. Okay, Indo-Pacific region contributes, it consists of 38 countries. Okay, so total number of countries in the Indo-Pacific region are 38 countries, and apart from that, it contributes 44% of the global surface area, 65% of world's population, 62% of world's GDP, 46% of world's merchandise trade, and 55% of world's container trade, and 70% of ship-borne energy transport. So it has such a huge significance. So therefore, in this context, we need to understand what exactly the Indo-Pacific region. Okay, as I have already told you, Indo-Pacific is a region that consists of Western Pacific Ocean. Okay, so imagine this is all a Pacific Ocean, and Indo-Pacific region consists of Western Pacific and the entire Indian Ocean right up to the eastern margins of the African continent. So this entire region is part of the Indo-Pacific. Okay. Now here you can see all the countries which are part of the Indo-Pacific security architecture. Okay. So a geopolitical construct, or you can say Indo-Pacific geopolitical construct. So this is an emerging geopolitical construct. Now Indo-Pacific consists of major countries like India, China, Japan, Australia, and Indonesia. Okay, so it also consists of Asian countries. So 10 Asian countries, Association of Southeast Asian Nation countries, right? So majority of the countries have been coming up with their own Indo-Pacific strategy or Indo-Pacific policy. In fact, European Union, US, and even if you can say India also. Okay, so however, what is common to all the policies of these countries is Asian centrality. Okay, so Asian centrality is common to all the policies of these countries, Indo-Pacific policies of these countries. Okay, so they wanted to ensure peaceful, prosperous, inclusive Indo-Pacific region. Okay, so this is what their vision is with respect to Indo-Pacific. So however, the other major common thing with respect to Indo-Pacific is that Chinese aggression and assertiveness, okay, especially in the South China Sea. China has been threatening the existing rules-based order. Okay, sorry. China has been threatening the existing rules-based order. So, in this context, we need to understand when it was exactly formulated, the Indo-Pacific. So, Indo-Pacific was conceived in 2006, in the year 2006. Okay, so what exactly Indo-Pacific? So, as I've already told you, it combines Indian Ocean region and Western Pacific region. Okay, so this is the inclusive of the contiguous seas of East Asia and Southeast Asia into a singular regional construct. Okay, so it consists of East Asia, Southeast Asia. So it is making the entire region as a singular regional construct. Okay, or a geopolitical construct. Now, so why the idea of Indo-Pacific has been gaining prominence in gaining eminence in recent past? So what is the major reason for that? So firstly, so there has been an increasing geopolitical connect between the Indian Ocean and the Western Pacific Ocean. Okay, so this is one major reason for increasing prominence of the Indo-Pacific region. Secondly, the eastward shift of the world's economic center of gravity. So we all know that all the Asian countries, all the Asian countries are known as manufacturing powerhouses. So apart from their manufacturing powerhouses, they are also developing countries. So they have a immense growth potential, and even China has been located in this region. So all making this region a center of gravity towards the Asian continent. Okay. Now after that, there has been a growing eminence of India. So in terms of India's military might, economic might, so India's eminence has been increasing at a rapid pace. Now India has emerged as a regional power. In fact, India even challenging the Chinese dominance in the region. Okay, so uh, uh, you know India has grown to such a level that it is challenging China, because China wanted to create a unipolar, hegemonic position. China wanted to grow to a hegemonic position in Asia. However, India has been challenging the hegemony of US, hegemony of China in the Indo-Pacific. Now, apart from that, in recent past, there has been an increasing political-military aggressiveness of China in the Indo-Pacific region. Okay, so this is also another major factor for gaining prominence of the Indo-Pacific region. So we very often come across, the things that China has been constructing, the artificial islands in the South China Sea. Okay, China constructing artificial islands in the South China Sea, and even a military confrontation with the several Southeast Asian countries such as Philippines very often, and even Indonesia. So therefore, the politico-military aggressiveness of China has further increased in the Indo-Pacific region. Okay, now it has been countering the other countries which are forming alliances, which are forming groups in the region. For example, Quad Quadrilateral Security Dialogue was formed by like-minded countries like US, India, Japan, and Australia. So the objective of Quad is ensure security cooperation. This is not a military alliance, but to ensure security cooperation. So, however, on the other hand, China has been perceiving Quad as a military alliance. It has been perceiving a Quad as a military alliance. So, however, on the other hand, a group like AUKUS can be called as a security and military alliance. So, in the formal sense, it is not a military alliance. So, in AUKUS, India is not a member. Okay, so since India has been following the policy of strategic autonomy, so we all know that India follows the policy of strategic autonomy. So therefore, India is not ready to be part of any sort of a military alliance or military group. So because of this reason, USA has formed AUKUS grouping in cooperation with Australia and UK. Okay, so there has been a politico-military aggressiveness of China in the region, and India's position or India's dominance has also been increasing in the Indo-Pacific region. So because of India's immense potential in the region, several other countries like US have also been eager to engage with India. So in the Indo-Pacific region. In fact, when countries like France and Japan announcing their Indo-Pacific policy, so they have included India. Okay, so they have made India one of the crucial pillar in their Indo-Pacific policy along with the Asian countries. Okay, so apart from that, it could be a global center of gravity. Okay, center of gravity because of several reasons: geopolitics, geoeconomics. Because of all those reasons, it could be a center of gravity at the global level. So apart from that, there has been an increasing geopolitical connect between the Indian Ocean and the Western Pacific Ocean. So since China has been rising at a rapid pace and it has been challenging the existing global order, existing rules based order. Several other countries have been forming such groups. Okay, so to contain China in Indo-Pacific region, especially Chinese aggressive stance, containing China's aggressive stance. So in this respect, what is the significance of the Indo-Pacific? Okay, what exactly Indo-Pacific significance? First and foremost, we need to understand, Indo-Pacific extends from Africa to America. So as I've already told you, the extent of the Indo-Pacific region. So therefore, for US, Indo-Pacific means free, open, and inclusive region. Okay, so free Indo-Pacific means that there should not be any restrictions, whether it is with respect to freedom of navigation, and freedom of overflight. Okay, so there should not be any restrictions. Indo-Pacific region should be free and open. So why these terms, freedom of navigation, freedom of overflight, have come into the Indo-Pacific policy of these countries is because now China has been imposing restrictions with respect to navigation and overflight. So because of this reason, they have come up with the terms called free and open Indo-Pacific. Okay, so inclusive Indo-Pacific involves that all the like-minded countries will have the right to be part of the Indo-Pacific region, or will have the right to ensure development in the Indo-Pacific region. So they can take part in the development of the Indo-Pacific region. This is what free, open, and inclusive Indo-Pacific actually means. Okay. Apart from that, So Indo-Pacific as a geostrategic or geopolitical construct includes all nations in the geography. So earlier I have told you around 38 countries are part of the Indo-Pacific geopolitical construct. Now, out of these 38 countries, several other countries are military superpowers, economic superpowers. So, therefore, Indo-Pacific region includes all nations of the geography. So, also others who have stake in it. For example, when we talk about European Union and other countries, so they also have a key stake in Indo-Pacific stability and security. Okay, so therefore Indo-Pacific include all those countries. Now, apart from that, Indo-Pacific as a region should be against the dominance of any single player. As I have already told you that China wanted, China wanted to maintain its dominance. So China wanted to ensure its hegemony in the Indo-Pacific region. So this is the first step for China to ensure its global hegemony. So before actually, having a global hegemonic position, China must first look for the hegemonic dominance in the Indo-Pacific region. So therefore, any group or any alliance in the Indo-Pacific region is actually against the dominance of Indo-Pacific by any single player, whether it is US, Russia, or China. So, however, in opposition to this, India has been looking to democratize this region. So, how India has been democratizing this region? For example, Quad. So, all the like-minded countries were brought together and they have formed Quad grouping. So, they cooperate on security and maritime security, scientific development, innovation, okay, and infrastructure development in the region. Therefore, India has been looking to democratize the region. So, in fact, India time and again also held that Indo-Pacific region is, Indo-Pacific region is, an inclusive region. So, every country can be an active stakeholder in the development of the Indo-Pacific region. So, therefore, in this way, India has been trying to democratize the region. So after that, India has also been announcing that it will not be part of any military alliance. So India will not be part of any military alliance, and India is also strongly opposing any sort of military alliance and military grouping in the Indo-Pacific, okay, or militarizing the Indo-Pacific region. So because that could be detrimental to India's interest in the region. Okay, so any sort of a military alliance is detrimental to India's interests also, because a new Cold War, it could become a theater for new Cold War, right? So how there was a Cold War between erstwhile USSR and US, after a post World War II. Similar way, there could be a second Cold War or new Cold War between US and China. So, the other thing is that all the countries in the Indo-Pacific are, a majority of the countries, most of the countries in the Indo-Pacific are nuclear armed countries. So, if you take India, China, Russia, and Pakistan. So, these countries are nuclear armed countries. So, any escalation of tensions could have a potential nuclear threat. So therefore, earlier Indo-Pacific used to be considered as an American league. Okay, so America used to have a predominance over the Indo-Pacific region because of its huge naval might. So we all know that USA has a huge naval might. So because of this reason, earlier Indo-Pacific was considered as an American league. Now after that, now in the present context, so there are fears that this Indo-Pacific region could become a Chinese lake. So if it becomes a Chinese lake, that could be detrimental for the interests of all the countries in the Asian region, particularly Association of Southeast Asian Nations, right? See, there are competing claims over the South China Sea with respect to China and other Asian countries, most of the Asian countries, okay, whether it is Vietnam, Indonesia, Philippines, Laos, Cambodia. So all these countries have a competing claims with respect to South China Sea, and in the South China Sea in particular, and in the Indo-Pacific in general, there has been an increasing aggression of China. So because of this reason, geopolitical experts have been predicting that the Indo-Pacific could become a Chinese lake. Now after that, we should also understand the geopolitical importance of the Indo-Pacific region. So geopolitically, how Indo-Pacific is important. So see, Indo-Pacific can become a powerhouse in coming years. It could become a powerhouse, because why I'm saying it is a powerhouse, because some of the world's most populous and economically most dynamic countries are located in the Indo-Pacific region, right? So what are these countries? India, China, Japan, Australia, and Indonesia. So all these countries are part of the Indo-Pacific region. They are economic heavyweights, so they can significantly influence the global outcomes. So because of this geopolitical importance of the Indo-Pacific, so it has become a global center of gravity. Now every country, every major power has been attracted towards the Indo-Pacific region. So because of this reason, there has been an increasing prominence for the Indo-Pacific region. Now after that, there are a huge security and strategic concerns also with respect to the Indo-Pacific region. Now if every country is becoming involved in a kind of a military conflict in the Indo-Pacific region, so that could potentially lead to a nuclear conflict, right? So similar to the Cuban Missile Crisis, and that is not good for the peace of the region, stability of the region, and beyond. Okay, so because this region contains the nuclear armed states. So what are those nuclear armed states? India, Pakistan, China, Russia. Okay, so Iran had been developing nuclear programs. Okay, so it has been developing nuclear programs after the US exit from the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. So US withdrawn from the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. So since then, Iran has also developing the nuclear weapons. So apart from these countries, USA also possess a large scale nuclear weapons. So any sort of a military conflict in the region is certainly not good for the global peace. So because this is another reason why Asia should not become a region for a great power game. Okay, so the presence of nuclear armed states in the region, and majority of these countries have unresolved territorial disputes. So one such example is India China line of actual control. Okay, so they have the unresolved territorial disputes. Now apart from these unresolved territorial disputes, as I have already told you, that China also have a disputes with respect to the Asian countries on South China Sea, because China has been building artificial islands, and China has also curbing the fishing rights of these Asian countries, imposing restrictions on vessels and even the naval presence of these countries. So therefore, over a period of time, China has been posing challenges to majority of the Asian countries in particular, and other countries which are part of this region in general. Okay, the other thing is that China's rise. So majority of the expert says that China's rise is remarkable rise. So China started growing economically since 1978. So now it has reached to such a level that now it is challenging US hegemony. So it wanted to build a new world order centered around China. So therefore, many countries in the region are seeking to balance China's influence. So in order to balance China's influence, they are inviting US and other European Union countries like France, Germany, and countries like UK. So they are inviting these countries into the Indo-Pacific in order to balance China's influence. So AUKUS was one such group. Quad is also another group. Okay, so therefore, in order to ensure their own security by strengthening alliances, so they wanted to strengthen alliances with these powerful countries against China so that they could balance China in an effective manner. Okay, so what the examples I have already told you. So Quad is an example, AUKUS is an example. Okay, so the great game in the Indo-Pacific. Okay, so what exactly is the great game? So great game is that different countries have been coming to Indo-Pacific. So the geopolitical rivalry has been further increasing between these countries. Okay, for example, now as I've told you, China has been challenging the existing global order. Not just challenging the existing global order that is centered around US, it has been even challenging US hegemony. It has been even challenging US hegemony. Okay, so how it has been challenging US hegemony? Through its rapidly increasing military might. So because of this reason, NATO has been shifting towards the Indo-Pacific region. Okay, so here you can see NATO has been shifting towards Indo-Pacific region or Asia. So if NATO has started, if NATO is shifted its focus to the Indo-Pacific region or at Asia, so that could be detrimental. Okay, so there could be military conflict, a direct military conflict between these countries. Okay, so one such plan of NATO is NATO plus grouping. So NATO plus grouping include NATO and five aligned nations. So these five aligned nations are Australia, New Zealand, South Korea, Japan, and Israel. So all these countries are part of the Indo-Pacific. Okay, so through NATO plus, NATO has already started, or NATO has already, you know, uh, has it has already come to Asia. So therefore, any sort of such military alliances or military groups would be detrimental to Asian security, stability, and peace. Now, so it could sideline the Asian centrality, Asian countries, and make the military conflict between these countries as prime goal. Okay, so it could also result in new Cold War between these countries. So, what are the member countries of NATO plus? Please remember Australia, New Zealand, South Korea, Japan, and Israel. Right. So, in this context, I would also like to ask you what is Five Eye Alliance? Okay, what is Five Eye Alliance or Five Eye countries? So, this is the term which is in news because of recent expulsion of diplomats from Canada. Canada expelled Indian diplomats, and India has retaliated. So, okay, so in this context, Five Eyes Alliance has been in news. So what is this Five Eyes Alliance? Please write this in comment section. Okay. So after that, Quad, a NATO-like alliance, was also formed with the like-minded countries in the Indo-Pacific region. Okay. So what are the member countries of Quad? We all know that India, US, Australia, and Japan are part of Quad security dialogue. So even though countries like India and Japan have been denying the fact that Quad is not a military alliance. Okay, so this is just an alliance between the like-minded countries for the cooperation. Okay, for the larger cooperation. So Quad is not against any other country. This is what India's position is with respect to Quad. So however, to a major extent, Quad is formed to ensure that China, it could be a deterrent to China. So it could be a deterrent to China, and it could limit Chinese assertiveness and aggression in the region. Okay, so the Quad, a NATO-like alliance is also formed, and this is also raising concerns with respect to a great game in the Indo-Pacific region that could potentially increase military conflicts in the region. For example, if you look at China and Russia, so they see Quad grouping, quadrilateral security dialogue, as a military alliance. Okay, so in this context, Quad also has Quad could also disrupt the existing stability in the Indo-Pacific region, and it could also sideline the Asian centrality. So the existing Asian centrality. So after that, China has been trying to dominate the Indo-Pacific region. Okay, it wanted to display its power. It wanted to project its power in the Indo-Pacific region. So one such attempt by China to project and display its power is through, claims over the South China Sea. Okay, so recently there has been growing masculinity of China in the South China Sea. So that has been threatening the sovereignty of other countries in the South China Sea. So most of those countries are Asian countries. So they are Philippines, Indonesia, Malaysia. Okay, so the sovereignty of these countries are threatened by increasing assertiveness and masculinity of China in the South China Sea. Okay, so India's refusal for NATO plus. So in fact, there was an offer for India to be part of the NATO grouping, but India has been refused to part of the NATO grouping, not just the NATO grouping or even any sort of a security alliance. Because if India forms any security alliance, that could be detrimental for India's long-term interest. So because of this reason, India will never be part of any sort of a security alliance. So with respect to the security alliance, India will continue to pursue the policy of non-alignment movement. So India will not form any blocks or alliances. Okay, so because this is not an age of alliance. However, India will go for issue-based partnerships with the member countries based on India's sovereign interests. Okay, sovereign interests. Okay, so this is what India's official position is with respect to India forming these alliances. So, however, maintaining stability and security is in India's permanent interest. So, India always look to ensure stability, security, and peaceful, inclusive Indo-Pacific region. So, it should be free from the military alliances, so that the potential economic, social, political cooperation could be possible. And the countries in the Indo-Pacific have been facing several challenges, such as poverty, lack of infrastructure, illiteracy, and a lack of technological development, poor education, healthcare, unemployment, and lack of adequate economic growth, and highest levels of corruption, political instability. So these are some problems the countries in the Indo-Pacific region have been facing. So if all the like-minded countries have come together and cooperate with the other countries which are part of the Indo-Pacific, then these countries would move on the path of development. Okay, so this is how you need to write a conclusion for this answer. Okay, so the next question is with respect to the free trade agreement. Now see, free trade agreement is also very important for your examination purpose. Okay. Now, so in recent past, India has inked several free trade agreements. Okay. So free trade agreement with Australia and United Arab Emirates. So these were the recent free trade agreements of India. So however, India has also negotiating a free trade agreement with European Union and also UK. So earlier UK was part of European Union. Through Brexit, UK was separated from European Union. Okay, so India has been negotiating a deal, a free trade agreement with UK and European Union. Okay, so earlier Canada was also part of the negotiations of India free trade agreement, but because of recent the diplomatic crisis between India and UK, so the negotiations were not went forward. Okay, so in this context, the question has been asking that there's a potential to lift India UK into a higher orbit of beneficial growth. Okay, so India UK can be promoted to a higher orbit of beneficial growth. So in this context, elucidate in the light of impending India UK free trade agreement. So this we need to understand, and this we need to analyze in the light of India UK free trade agreement. Okay, now in this context, please understand the background of India UK free trade agreement. So this you can write in the introduction. So what is the background of the free trade agreement between India and UK? So before understanding the background, the brief background, we need to understand what exactly the free trade agreement. Okay. So what is a free trade agreement? Now, a free trade agreement is a pact between it's a pact or an agreement between two or more nations to reduce the barriers of import and export among them. Okay, so what are the barriers? For example, imposing tariffs. For example, goods from one country is taken to the another country. Okay, so the second country may impose higher tariffs. So not just tariffs, for example, higher customs. Okay, higher customs. So if it imposes higher tariffs, then goods from other country, uh, you know they cannot be competitive. So they are not very competitive if higher taxes are imposed. So therefore these two countries agreed to reduce tariffs, both tariffs and non-tariff barriers. Non-tariff barriers in the sense like sanitary and phytosanitary measures. Okay, so sanitary and phytosanitary measures are the standards of these goods and services, right? So in this context, a free trade agreement is actually a pact between two or more nations to reduce barriers to imports and exports among them. So this is what is free trade agreement. Now what exactly the benefits of free trade agreements? Okay, so free trade agreements have a set of benefits. Okay, so the first and foremost benefit is that it free trade agreements promotes trade and creates more dynamic business environment. Okay, so they always create a more dynamic business environment so that these countries can engage. Okay, so there should be a conducive environment for business among these countries. So apart from that, these free trade agreements can minimize government spending and gives boost to economies. Okay, so these they can also boost the economies and minimizes the government spending. And FDI inflows. So whenever the two countries have been inking a free trade agreement, that could encourage the free trade, the foreign direct investment inflows. Okay, so FDI inflows into the economy, and that will help in capital flows. So after that, it could also give the existing firms, the existing small firms, they could have new and emerging technologies. So that could also significantly improve their functioning, okay, their operations. So after that, the consumers could have a higher quality and lower price goods, because it could potentially improve the competitiveness. Okay, so it could potentially improve the competitiveness, and more competitiveness means that there will be in high quality and lower price goods will be available for the consumers, right? So after that, whenever two countries have been negotiating on a free trade agreement, it could improve protection to the intellectual property rights. So generally India have the distinction that India is not providing better protection to the intellectual properties of other countries. So therefore, whenever India has been going for any free trade agreement, it will improve the the intellectual property also, right? Now, after that, it could allow the participants, the exporters, to participate in the development of product standards in the free trade agreement partner country. Right. So after that, it could also help service suppliers to supply their services in the free trade agreement partner country. So these are the set of potential benefits because of the free trade agreement. Now, after that, so we need to understand the background of the free trade agreement between India and UAE. So, in 2022, India and UK had launched the formal trade agreement negotiations. So, they have formally started the free trade agreement negotiations. Right. So, earlier, both these countries have been focused or agreed to an early harvest scheme. Okay, so they have focused on early harvest scheme. So early harvest scheme means they'll focus on limited set of goods and services. Okay, so not all the goods, because there are several contentious issues with respect to the free trade agreement. So what are the goods to be allowed and what are the goods which should not be allowed? So therefore the early harvest scheme ensures that the limited trade agreement. So the trade will take place between the limited goods. So both the countries will reduce the tariffs with respect to these goods. Okay, so which are part of the early harvest scheme, right? Now after that, so there are certain sensitive issues in the free trade agreement negotiations. So however, both these countries are decided to avoid negotiating on these sensitive issues. So they can avoid focusing on these sensitive issues, and they can focus on areas where there is more complementarity. So if they have more complementarity means, okay, trade in certain goods is benefiting India, and so India would select those goods which have which India have the advantage. Similarly, UK also select a certain basket of goods where UK has the advantage. So in order to achieve the complementarity, they will select a certain basket of goods and they start trading on those goods. So this is part of the early harvest scheme. However, they will avoid the sensitive issues. For example, if you look at India, agriculture is a sensitive issue. Okay, so because of the potential impact on Indian agriculture, India was out of the regional comprehensive economic partnership. Okay, so earlier it was ASEAN, so plus 10 countries in 6 countries in the region. But since India is out of the RCEP, now it has become 10 Asian countries plus 5 other countries in the region. So since agriculture and dairy sector are very sensitive, or considered sensitive sectors for India in the trade talks, right? So however, both these countries, India and UK, have focused on doubling the trade. So they focused on doubling the trade between UK and India by the year 2030. So however, free trade agreement will play a very major role between India and UK to meet the target of doubling the trade by 2030. So this is the brief background about the India-UK free trade agreement, right? So as we have already understood what exactly is the free trade agreement, so it is a pact between two or more nations. So that could reduce barriers to imports and exports among the nations. Okay. Now the potential impacts of the free trade agreement. Now after that, so what is the significance of the free trade agreement between India and UK? So what exactly are the significance? So that could benefit both India and UK. So first and foremost, it could increase exports. For example, if you look at India's trade with UK, India has surplus trade. India has surplus trade. So therefore, with the countries, India has a surplus trade. So if it increases its trade, if it increases its exports, that could benefit India in the long term. So that will also help double the trade. Okay. So in fact, India UK have set the target of doubling trade by 2030. Right. So as part of this goal, the free trade agreement will help increase export of goods. Okay, so the trade deals with UK can boost exports for large job creating sectors. For example, after agriculture sector in India, textile sector is the second largest employer after agriculture. So therefore, if we export textile based items, leather, footwear and other goods, so these are considered as job creating sectors. Okay, so or they are also known as employment incentive sectors or labor incentive sectors. Okay, textile, leather goods and footwear. Okay, so increasing exports will create a large scale jobs uh, uh, in these two countries. So apart from that, there will be a clarity on services trade. So India, without a doubt, have an extra advantage with respect to services. So India have the surplus trade balance in services. So therefore, a clarity in service trade is very important. So the free trade agreement will provide certainty, predictability, and transparency with respect to the free trade agreement on services. So whenever there's a more clarity, predictability, and transparency about service trade, so it will create a more liberal, facilitative, and competitive services regime. Okay, so India had also come out of the regional comprehensive economic partnership. So India now is not part of the RCEP. So I have already told you what are the member countries which are part of the RCEP. Okay, so RCEP member countries are 10 Asian countries plus 5 other countries in the region. So India exited from the regional comprehensive economic partnership. So, so since India is out of this RCEP, India having a free trade agreement with countries like UK, where it has the positive surplus trade balance and a competitive advantage, that could benefit India. Okay, so further increasing India's exports. So therefore, there is a renewed focus on trade deals with US, European Union, and UK. Now, India has been increasingly focusing on trade deals with UK, US, and European Union, where India has a surplus trade. India has surplus trade and it will benefit India in the long term. Okay, so therefore now India started focusing on these countries because they are key markets for India's exports, and it will also help India diversify its export destinations. Now India has a huge trade deficit with countries like China. So therefore, diversification of trade will benefit India. Ultimately, we are exploring the markets where we have the advantage, right? So in this context, what should be the way forward between India UK free trade agreement? So there is no doubt that the free trade agreement could significantly improve India's trade relations with UK. Okay, so in this context, addressing the contentious issues, for example, intellectual property rights, global value chains, digital trade, and rules of origin. So these are some of the contentious issues, and focus should be on addressing these contentious issues as early as possible so that a comprehensive free trade agreement can be made. Now, this comprehensive free trade agreement will further rapidly increase the trade, will help further rapidly increase trade between these two countries. So apart from that, India should follow a more cautious approach or slow pace of negotiations whenever it has been dealing with sensitive issues. For example, agriculture and dairy sector is a sensitive matter for India. So whenever there is such a sensitive matter, so India could follow more cautious approach and slow pace of negotiations. Okay, so ultimately this slow pace or cautious approach reflects India's commitment to securing a comprehensive deal. So even if it takes time, but India is committed to securing a comprehensive deal. So this we can observe with respect to UAE and Australia. So where India is successful in securing a comprehensive deal. Okay, so please also remember, whenever India secures such a comprehensive deal, it also protects its own interests. Okay, so therefore, because of this reason, the negotiations with respect to the free trade agreement takes time. Okay, so they actually takes time, right? So after that, the outcome of these negotiations will actually shape India's future trade agreements, right? So because if these negotiations are fruitful, and these negotiations help secure a comprehensive deal that will ensure India's future trade agreements. So therefore it will make the matter for careful consideration and strategic decision making. So this is how you can conclude this answer with a neat and clear way forward. So in this way you can get good marks. So these are the questions, these are previous year questions, and these questions will remain relevant in the upcoming examinations also. So therefore, so please understand these concepts. Okay, so that's it for today, and we will meet tomorrow. Okay, thank you so much.